Well, good morning. I'm talking with Pastor Christian Cant, who is the chaplain at Bond University here on the Gold Coast in Queensland. Good morning, Christian.
Good morning, Pastor.
Christian, can you give me one or two examples of people who you have ministered to in the area of grief and loss? How did you go about supporting them?
Well, usually I find out through student support services, which is the non-academic care arm of the university students. I get a phone call saying, look, just letting you know, such and such has passed away, and they're having a vigil here, or a memorial service there, or the person's dying in intensive care unit, wherever it might be. I make a commitment to be there, and just being there, being a presence, not saying anything, being aware you're there. And with time, people then come up with you and talk with you, and you just encourage them, you offer to pray with them, just give them a big hug sometimes.
And have you ever as a chaplain, conducted a funeral of a student?
Never a funeral, but only memorial service. I guess the difference.
What's the difference before that?
With a funeral, you actually have the body there,
yeah,
with either the casket or the coffin. That is usually handled by the funeral homes. The university doesn't really want to have bodies on campus in that sense.
A ceremony on campus?
No, they don't actually want a funeral on campus.
Uh-huh.
But they have memorial services. Usually it's in a place called Memorial Park, where they plant a tree and a plaque of the deceased student or staff members put there, and a few words are shared.
And do you organise that, or you contribute?
It depends on the person. I usually co-organise it with student support services. If the student is in some sense spiritual, either they're Christian or they believe in God, then usually I'm very heavily involved.
And if they're not, if they're an unbeliever, but the university invites you to contribute, what would you do?
Well,
it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess
because the student could be a stranger.
Yeah. Well, I usually find out through the student body who the student is. The last memorial service we had, the student was a very stark atheist and started the Communist Party at Bond University. The student club. So very strong atheist. And so obviously it would have been inappropriate, they felt, for me to run it. But I was still present, and I was just there to talk to people, encourage them, and obviously I'm just praying silently under my breath that God would do something good.
So your role was to be present,
yeah,
and students can see that,
yeah,
and they know who you are.
That's right.
And if you were to do a funeral, how would you go about that as a chaplain, as compared to, say, a pastor of a church who knows the people? What would be your procedure there?
Well, I try to find as much as I can about the student through their friends,
yes, and
through to the university itself. And then based on that, I will structure the funeral, the memorial service accordingly. I usually email a proposal to student service saying, what do you think? And we just kind of modify it until.
So you work with the university?
Yes, I do.
What about if the parents were overseas?
Well, we actually had one case where, sadly enough, a student fell to his death after drinking too much. And the parents were overseas, they were in the States, and they couldn't make it over here. They were going to ship the coffin back, but we did a memorial service, and they actually filmed a memorial service for the parents' sake.
Okay, so that's quite unique to the university environment with international students. Christian, thank you for your time. We've been talking about grief and loss, part of Module 7 of your chaplaincy training course.